Hello, listeners, and welcome to Toolbox Talks. My name is Matt Jones, and I am super excited to be bringing you today's podcast. It's a little bit different today. So, August 9 is International Indigenous Day. Right around the world, we're celebrating the Indigenous communities of different types. And I've actually today invited Ben Stainer, who is a very proud Indigenous member, and he has also been on the show previously, if I'm not sure if you recall, but back in episodes 29, 30, 31, and 32 on the site shed. Ben has actually, he's got the series was called Big Business. Ben ran an absolute plumbing, building, and electrical empire, which he has since sold. At the peak, he had 65 employees and 45 trucks on the road. So the guy is a bit of a magnate when it comes to business. However, I've invited Ben on the show today just to talk a little bit about his background, a bit of his history, and some of the, some stuff about his family and the local areas that he grew up in. And it's an amazing podcast. This was seriously probably one of the best podcasts I think I've ever recorded. I think it's relevant to anybody out there. So please go ahead and share the hell out of this one. And Ben's actually got an amazing journey coming up where he's going to be walking from Melbourne up to Sydney. It's going to take them 3 months, and there's 3 of them doing it. And he's going to keep us posted with all that stuff as well. So yeah, look guys, by all means, have a listen to this podcast. If you like it, leave us some reviews. It's pretty incredible. And then, if you've got any good wishes or anything you'd like to share with Ben as well, please post it in the show notes or email them through, and we'll make sure to read them out. Okay, let's dive right in.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Ben Stainer, welcome back to the microphone. How are you?
Good, Matt. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for joining us again.
No worries.
On Toolbox Talks. For the listeners that may remember, Ben actually was on the show a little while back. We did a series called Big Business with Ben Stainer, and that was back in episode 29, 30, 31, and 32. Ben, do you just want to give a bit of a quick background as to your business accolades?
I had a trade services company that was 5-star trades. We did plumbing, electrical, and building, and a bit of excavation, so we pretty much did everything.
Yep.
That was pretty big. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So he's kind of modest for you listeners out there. Actually, back in that series, it was probably one of our best, one of our most popular series according to downloads and comments. I encourage you to go check that out. I'll post some links to the show notes for anyone that missed it. But yeah, Ben did run what I consider a bit of an empire. It was probably going back. How many years ago did you sell that business, Ben? Was it 8 years or something?
Oh, about 4 years ago.
4 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was a pretty considerable business back in the time. And we covered off on some really cool topics back in that series, which was very good because as you will learn very soon, Ben doesn't sugarcoat stuff and he just tells it how it is. And I think the majority of our listeners love that. So anyway, the reason I've asked Ben to come back on the show today is because August 9 is International Indigenous Day, and Ben is a proud member of the Indigenous community, and he's done some really cool stuff with that community. So I just wanted to get Ben back on the show and just talk a little bit about his history. And for the listeners out there, it is a pretty cool story dating back to his grandparents, etc. And yeah, coming up with this day of recognition, I thought it would be appropriate to get Ben in there to, I suppose, give his 2 cents. So, Ben, thanks again, mate, for joining us. Much appreciated.
No worries, man.
So you've got a bit of a cool history. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm hoping to learn a bit more throughout this podcast. Maybe we can start a bit about with your grandparents and parents and, the areas you sort of grew up in.
Yeah. Like my Aboriginal grandmother grew up in Geelong, which is Jervis Bay, or Carabine Creek, which is, if anybody knows, Husky Pub. You look straight across the inlet there, and she used to swim across there to go to school. She lived up there in a humpy with her grandparents, and she had a white father, and he was from England. He was a hydraulics engineer. So he did all the plumbing and stuff out at the naval base. That was like in the early 1900s.
Yep.
She was born 1905. Her grandmother was basically saw sailing ships come into Jervis Bay.
Wow.
She lived to 110. So, and she used to do corroboree for my nana. She used to speak language to my nana, but my nana wasn't allowed to go to school and speak language. So that was the sort of the times where, people didn't. Yeah, they like a long story in the short, they weren't allowed to speak language, but she knew Durga, which was one of the languages of the Yuin tribe. So the Yuin tribe basically starts from La Perouse right down to the Victorian border. I think there was 5 or 6 different tribes, and Wandanian was where our people came from. So
you just mentioned one thing that I'm sure a lot of our listeners, especially our overseas listeners, would have no idea what you're talking about. A corroboree. What's a corroboree?
Basically, it's a dance, and there's stories in it.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff's learning. There's stories in it. I don't know a lot about it. My nana did, and she died in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So we lost a lot of that. But what I do know is they used to go to Pigeon House Mountain from Jervis Bay, and they would also go right up to Sassafras, which is up at the back of Mariga, and there's like a Bora ground up there.
Yeah.
Special meeting place. I've walked through there. It took me 6 days, a solid 10-hour walking days.
Wow.
Through scrub to walk from Pigeon House up to there. So, but they used to regularly do that. And those Aboriginal tracks are still there. Same with the Princess Highway. That Princess Highway is really the Aboriginal highway.
Is that right?
So when they cut the road through, that was the road that been used for 40,000 years.
And so, what was the road used for? Like, was it just a way from getting from A to B for them, or was it for?
No different. So you'd have signposts. So scar trees were signposts. So when you go along through the bush, they'd have scar trees. So you there'd be a marking that would show where there's water, where there's food, what type of food, and which direction to go. So that everything was signposted. The other side of it, they have song lines. So a song line is like a road map. Mm-hmm. So they would sing it and they would learn it. So if you were going to walk from Jervis Bay to Goulburn, there'd be a song line, and it would talk about the country as you walked through it.
Oh, right.
And that's how they navigate. So if you say you went even from Jervis Bay to Victorian border, that's what my grandfather used to do. There would be a song line of the different country and the different ground and different trees, and so you knew where you were.
Yeah, wow. And so that's
all that's
was that all passed down through generations? Is that how that kind of works?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
So that's getting back to the corroboree and stuff like that. There would have been storytelling and that, and meanings and dances and a whole heap of stuff.
So would somebody have heard? I mean, somebody would have had to have, I suppose, started those stories, right? Did those stories evolve, or were they always just passed on through generation the same?
No, I guess things change.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think there's a few stories down there about the ocean. Like most of the Aboriginal people are close to the ocean.
Yeah.
Most of our family are all very they're called saltwater people.
Yeah.
So from La Perouse right down to the Victorian border, they're the saltwater people.
Okay.
So there's lots of stories about when the sea level, obviously they come out of the sea because the sea level is further back and stuff like that.
Right.
Then
Yeah.
So there's lots of
So for the listeners, Jervis Bay, so the area that you currently live in, right?
No, I live in Badella.
Oh, okay.
But that's where my nana's family and all that come from.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's geographically for the listeners. That's probably what you say 3-4 hours. Oh, okay. So what 3 hours south of Sydney?
Yeah, it's like two
Okay.
2.25.
Yeah.
But sort of to rehash back what I was saying about to sort of give you a bit of an idea, is Nana's cousins weren't allowed to go to school because Nana was half caste.
Right.
She and her father was the hydraulics engineer at the naval base. She had a naval education. So the long story and the short, a lot of the cousins weren't allowed to go to school. They weren't given that opportunity, and that's why you see there's a lot of, like, our family's fine because my nana's grandmother was really strict, and she handed down that traditional side where she, they didn't drink, they didn't smoke, and they were very strict.
Yeah.
And then she ended up getting a good education, and they went and got jobs and all that. But a lot of people who were on the missions, like the mission at Wreck Bay, were people that had moved down there from anywhere from Victoria to up in Sydney because they were getting away from the white settlement because, they were getting shot and all sorts of things. So they merged down. So there was a lot of people. I think there was 5 or 10% of the population left within the first 100 years.
Wow.
So you can imagine if you had your family and you lost 9 out of 10 people in your family.
Yeah.
And then you had a couple of 100 years where you're given handouts, or you're given, you weren't treated well.
Yeah.
You couldn't vote and all that. So yeah, there's reasons why some of the Aboriginal community are in the position where they are now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a, I don't know, it's just, like, you look back on it now and it's just it's just a ridiculous story. It's surreal. I mean, the whole thing, it's just mind-boggling. I'm sure we don't even know the half of it, but, well, I'm sure you may have a better idea than the most of us, but yeah, some of the stuff that went on was just crazy. But anyway, I suppose.
Yeah, but like, that's happened all around the world, and that's just the way it is. But you just got to move forward from that. There's a lot of good stuff, that we can that we can share and move forward on.
Yeah, exactly. So how is that? How is the community where your grandmother grew up? How was that established?
Well, Billong, which you won't see in the actual road maps or maps or anything like that, Billong's a place where what my nana told me was that her grandparents grew up there and lived there and saw sailing ships come in to Jervis Bay. So they'd always lived there, and within that area of Jervis Bay, there's always plenty of food there. Yeah. So that's how they got there. But they were in an area where, two cultures collided, and they survived. They were the 1 in 10,
right?
That actually grew up, were born there, from that old way.
Yeah,
went through with white people coming in, and then obviously they had kids, and then my nana's nana met a white guy, and that's how I become a plumber as well from that, because he was in the plumbing, and my dad's uncle became a plumber, and my dad became a plumber, and now my son's a plumber. So
awesome.
That's where it all fits in, and Billong's a place where my grandparents, not my grandparents, my great grandparents are buried there, and my nana's brother's buried there.
Okay.
Because they used to. I'm sort of digressing a bit, but I'll be real quick. My nana's brother is buried out in the bush, and there's a grave there still today. You can see, He was 5, so he was in early 1908 or 1907 or something like that. He had a tomahawk and he hit a mortar shell from the Navy used to shoot into the bush, and it blew up, right? But that's where they live, so they used to shoot. So crazy it is. They used to shoot mortar shells into the bush where they lived, and he hit one day with a tomahawk and it blew up and killed him. So he's buried out in the bush there with all those old people who used to live there as well at Billong.
And how old was he when he died, did you say?
It was about 5 or 6.
Wow.
So that was in 1900. So what you got to consider is, and to put in perspective, is my great-great-grandmother lived to 110.
Yeah.
My great-great-grandfather lived he was roughly around about 100, I'd say, by looking at the photo.
Yeah.
And my nana lived to around about 90. So, and she was born right on 1903 or something like that. So she was passed down information from her grandmother who basically walked out of the bush.
Yeah.
So she would have been born in maybe 1820 and then saw sailing ships coming down, and then they started to push down, down the south coast, pushing in roads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then started to see people. And then she grew up through that era, and she passed a lot of the stuff on to my nana and my nana's sister, like language and stuff like that. And that's how they got the Durga language together as well. My auntie Kit was part of that.
Yeah, right.
That's the only language that's left on the south coast.
Is that right?
Out of the 5 different clans.
Out of the 5, yeah, well. And so do you speak that language?
Willawani Ninja which is safe journey.
Yeah.
That's I know that.
Willawani Ninja
I've probably said it wrong, but it is that.
No, it's all right.
But I can't speak English properly either. So
no, I was just gonna say that.
I've got the book, and it's got all the different. And I'm actually going to use that language when I've taken photos of the book when I walk from Melbourne to Sydney. Yeah, doing a traditional walk like my great grandfather would have.
Okay,
did. And I'm going to, when we eat stuff, I'm going to write down the Durga language.
So let's talk about that a bit, actually, because for the listeners out there, Ben's about to embark on I suppose it's a pretty substantial trip on foot, but as you just mentioned, it's something that your granddad probably did pretty frequently without all the fuss. So you're about to walk from Sydney to Melbourne, right?
Melbourne, CBD, we're going to drop a canoe in at the Yarra. We were actually making a bark canoe, but I've run out of time. And I just don't. At certain times of the year, you got to get bark off trees to make it work. So I'm just going to borrow a canoe.
Right.
We're going to go down the Yarra, hit the coast. That canoe will get given to my wife. She'll take it home, and then we're going to walk. The three of us is Chris Kenny, who's a local Aboriginal guy. He's about 1920. I used to work with him through the Land Council. And there's my son Billy Stainer, and there's myself, and we're going to walk for 3 months to Sydney. When we get to Sydney, we're going to get the canoe back. Actually, Jervis Bay, we're going to get the canoe back. Mm-hmm. Do a bit of going up the channels and stuff, and then hit Sydney Harbour and come into there. So our last stop will be close to Christmas. Wow. Paddling in Sydney Harbour. But the whole time we're living off the land. So all we've got is basically backpack, spear, goggles, knife, no utensils. We've got a lighter. Yeah. Making fire every day, but yeah. So that's coming up into September.
So you're going to find your own shelter every night and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
What an adventure! And are you going to document it?
Yeah.
GoPro.
Billy's going to do a Facebook page.
Good.
And we'll whack it on that. But and then I'll probably share it on my one as well. But we're meeting up with Geringer Land Council. That's at that's an Aboriginal Land Council at Jervis Bay.
Yeah.
and that's probably close to my heart because that's where my people come from. So they're going to show us all around different places what are special and what means what. And I've lined up. We're actually going to eat a wombat down in Victoria. Yeah, they reckon they taste nice. So we're going to cook it in like a hungy. So I've lined up Chris's mob from down there. We're going to do that, and then we've got Wallaga Lake community. I spoke to the fella there. He's going to take us up the mountain, so Mount Dromedary, or Goolaga Mountain. That's the proper name for it. Yeah, and that's a special place. So he's going to get some women to take us up there.
Yeah.
And they're going to feed us. And we're also, I spoke to Paul from River Cottage.
Yeah.
That's a show on telly. And he's going to do a cook up for us on the beach. So we're going to catch some fish when we go through Tilba, and he's going to come down the beach and cook it up for us. And so we're going to make people work for us a bit.
Yeah, why not? That's amazing. And for the listeners, you mentioned you were going to cook a wombat by a hungy. I'm sure the Kiwi listeners certainly understand what that is, but do you just want to explain to maybe the North American audience what a hungy is?
Yeah, just a hole in the ground with some hot rocks and and backfill dirt back over it with coals on top.
Yeah,
and it'll cook in itself. It's just an underground oven.
Yeah, it's just right. It's kind of baking it underground, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm actually really interested in that because I've never eaten wombat before. So
yeah,
I reckon it's good. Yeah.
I imagine it would be kind of porky.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got a bit of fat in it, I've been told.
Yeah, interesting.
So,
well, we look forward to the sequel where you tell us what eating wombat was like. Let's talk a little bit about, I suppose, your segue into. I mean, you mentioned your grandfather was in hydraulics, and as a result, your father, et cetera, and you ended up as a plumber, and now your son's a plumber. Let's talk a little bit about, I suppose, that entry into becoming a tradesman, and how that all became about, and I suppose the guidance that you received from your grandfather and your father, and how you sort of decided to take that route as opposed to maybe one of many other routes.
Yeah. Well, I left school halfway through year 9. I even in year 8, I was looking at school and thinking, I'm just wasting my time. But I struggled through school the whole way. But I had a plan that I was going to start an excavation business because I loved digging as a kid. But long story in the short, Dad said, and I come home one day and said, I'm leaving. I've got this job lined up. I was going to get $500 a week working at, which was big money back then, but working at nights, catching chickens and pulling their heads. And that's what they were paying back then. But and then I was going to save up for a bobcat and do this and that. But anyway, Dad goes, you cut rock on the weekend, then why don't you come in and you're doing plumbing on the weekend with us? Why don't you just come do an apprenticeship? And I said, okay, no worries. So that went there, and then I, from an early age, I think it was 19 and I had my contractor's license. I travelled and then come back, and I think I was like 17, 18. I was running the business anyway.
Yeah, right. With your dad?
But I was like, yeah, with my dad. And Dad, see, all my brothers and that are a lot older. I'm the youngest out of the whole family. So
okay.
They were all doing their own thing, and Dad was wanting to get out.
Yeah.
He was probably only doing it because I was around.
Yeah.
But long story in the short, I was lucky that I worked with Dad. Dad never say too much, but a lot of action. But I worked with a Mad Dutchman. He was, he came over from the war, became a plumber. Long story short, couldn't speak English. He topped the whole year for plumbing in his first year and learned how to speak English at the same time.
Okay.
So super smart guy.
Yeah.
He did a lot of development and stuff like that, and I learned a lot of him. And but he was around about 55, 60 when I was working with him.
Yeah.
And he was one of those old school guys, which I learned a lot of we'd screw pipe and we'd make everything by hand. We'd form junctions and
yeah, right.
and we did work out at the reactor, so there was a whole heap of different stuff out there where you just sort of have to make stuff what wasn't, you couldn't buy off the shelf.
Yeah.
So I was lucky in the apprenticeship with that. Yeah, so those guys are, however you say it, important in my life and helped me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And so you said that your grandfather, or was it your great-grandfather, was a hydraulic engineer with the...
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. He was a hydraulic engineer at the naval base at Jervis Bay.
So when was that established? Do you have any idea? Just time frame?
Stuff. He was old, man.
Yeah.
Well...
Like early 1900s?
No, it would have been 18.
Okay.
Nana was born in 1905 or something, or 1903.
Yeah, okay.
So he would have been doing it in the late 1800s,
Yeah. So it was pretty much established when the first fleet came in. Is that right?
Yeah, whenever the naval base started down there.
So
when they first started coming down.
So that was in 1888, I guess, or somewhere around there, which sounds about right.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And then he taught my Nana's brother.
Yeah.
My Nana's brother moved to Sydney, and he started a business, and Dad used to work with him. And I'll tell you what's interesting, you might find it funny too, is that Dad said he used to have a clock, and he'd say, right, you've got to do this job within 1 hour. Right, he'd show him what you got to do. You got 1 hour to do it, and you go, do you understand? And you go, yeah, I understand. And he'd hit the button on the clock for 1 hour, and it'd go off. This is back in like the 1950s,
Yeah.
So it's funny, like how, but that's what our family were all like. They're all pretty strict on, not mucking around and getting into it and getting results. So yeah, that sort of blew me away.
So anyway, you started from working with your father and the Mad Dutchman. You went out and started your own business. How did that come about?
Well, that's sort of already, in some ways, I worked. There's only probably a couple of years, maybe 3 years, that I worked for Dad.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between, turning up every day and go, what do you want me to do, and just doing it, to actually running the jobs and quoting the work and getting the money in, chasing the money. I was doing all that when I was like 17 or 18.
Right.
So that's when, and there was more. Dad wasn't that interested, so I had to, and I was interested in making money. Money gives you choices.
Yeah.
So it just happened that way. I was always. It was never really like. It was only probably a couple of years where it felt like it was a job.
Yeah. So your business, I suppose, in comparison to your apprenticeship where you grew up, even working with the Dutchman, like your business, Australian 5-Star Trades, was a bit of a machine, really, wasn't it? I mean, you had lots of guys working. You had, how many guys did you have working at the peak? Like 25 or more? How many was it?
65 staff.
65 staff.
45 trucks.
So where did you learn, the system side of things and how to scale? I mean, you obviously didn't learn that in your apprenticeship.
Yeah, you're right. I had a totally different business model to the old school way. I learned, like, I'm good at writing procedures, and I'm good at, I'm naturally procedure orientated. So if I go and look at something and go, right, you do this, and then next step is to do this, and everything's in a line. And
Are you telling me that you're one of those people that actually reads instructions out of an IKEA box?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I say, Billy's learning how to do plumbing at the moment, right? And actually Ivy is too, my daughter, but I said to her the other day, which I said to Bill, I said, most plumbers will pull the instructions out of the box, wipe their ass on it and throw it in the corner. And then they'll put it all together, it'll be wrong, and then they'll come back and go, where did that piece of paper go?
Yeah.
And I said, you don't want to be like one of those guys.
Yeah.
You need to, yeah. So I'm sort of getting a bit off track, but...
Well, not really. You're basically, it's not really off track at all. You basically you're about procedures and systems and following, getting your staff to follow procedures. It all makes pretty a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I did read I was naturally like that, and I did read the E-Myth book as well. So I got a lot of ideas out of that, but generally as a person, I might not seem this way. Some people look at me and think the guy's just random or whatever, you know what I mean? But deep down, I'm not. Like I like order and I like things and I know that when I did something a certain way, like I don't like wasting my time. Mm-hmm. Like if I can come in and I can run a business or I can do something, I can do it in quarters of the time or half the time to someone else and make money and move on, then I will, because I've only got so much time in my life. So I look at it and go, okay, well, how can I get this? How can I work out what works and what doesn't work, and then keep repeating that?
Yeah.
Keep repeating what works rather than what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then, okay, now I've got a few extra guys. Now I need to write it down.
Yeah.
Right? Now I need to give them scripts. Now I need to give them procedures, and now I need to, even on the front of our old invoice books, it was a step-by-step guide on how to actually invoice someone.
Yeah.
And if they didn't do it right, I'd come back and I'd say, what went wrong? Okay. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? No, I didn't do that. Okay. Do you understand why you need to do it? Yeah, I know how to do it now, and I understand why I need to do it.
Yeah. I think there's a lesson in that for everyone.
Yeah. So it's not hard. It's just identifying it and putting it in writing.
Yeah.
And tweaking it, because you won't get it right the first time. You always have little adjustments.
Yeah. So, Ben, did you? I mean, over the years, I know you've worked with a lot of the Indigenous community. I suppose I'd like to hear your side of the story when it comes to employing Indigenous people and working with Indigenous people, especially in a trade point of view. What's your experience?
What you want an overall, or you want specifically just as workers, or?
Well, I mean, I suppose what I want to establish is the reality as opposed to what many people may be subjected to, probably incorrectly.
Yeah, okay. The
stereotype. Yeah.
Most what you find is that if you've grown up in an environment where we talked about it earlier, like about how people didn't get educated and that flows through, and then 1 in 10 people survived and families torn apart, and then they had stolen generation where some people say, oh, that wasn't true, but it's true, because my nanny used to talk about it, that they should say don't say that you're Aboriginal, because back then it didn't help. You know what I mean? It's not that they weren't proud people, but it just, you're in a time where like it's dangerous to have your kids taken away. You know what I mean? So you'll conform. That's why they never spoke the language. But like my auntie Kit, she understood the language. So if you understand all that, and then you look where we are now and look at some communities and some people, they've been affected by that. Now, that takes time to get over that and for people to be re-empowered. So there's a lot of self-esteem that's being lost, what I see in Aboriginal people, and there's not a lot of strong leadership. There's a lot of people out there actually doing things and doing good things, but you'll see those problems.
Yeah.
So if you have a bit more, and you could go on forever about that, but there's a lot more information than that. But if you take that into the context, and then you go and say, okay, well, would you employ an Aboriginal person? And I would say to you, yes, on the basis that what you find with most of them, this is not all of them, but the ones who are keen, but just need a bit of
guidance.
You can say
leadership,
guidance, and leadership and self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Aboriginal people have got this ability to very, very good with their hands, very good at problem solving. Right? They can get anything. It's like my dad. He used to be able to get anything and fix something with just something laying around. Whether it was run out of emery cloth, just grab a rag and get some sand, or not even a rag, just some sand and some water, and start scratching up the pipe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To clean it. You know, he used to show me how to sharpen things on the side of the road, on the gutter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you've got this natural ability of these. So if you can employ someone that can improvise with things that you probably wouldn't think were available. The other side of it is their hand skills are very good, very fast. That's why a lot of them are all sportsmen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are quite intelligent. You've got to bring that out. And they're generally quiet people.
Yeah.
So I think in the right conditions and the right mentoring, like you said, and leadership, then you have a real asset there.
I can kind of relate to what you're saying. I mean, I sort of came. Well, I'm obviously not entirely, but I mean, I've never. Like, I'm one of those kids that grew up and I was never academic, but I think there's a bit of a disconnect out there. And I think there's that whole perception in the marketplace of if you're not academic, then you're not smart, which couldn't really be further from the truth. I mean, there's different levels of, smart is a big scale. Being academic is one small area of it.
Yeah, well, the school system doesn't
cater.
Well, teachers are teachers.
Yeah,
they've been brought up in that system and they know that system,
exactly.
And that it encourages those people to come together.
Yeah,
and that's how they teach.
Yeah,
but for boys, that's why I'm not dumb at all. It's just that schooling wasn't my strongest point and wasn't my interest as a boy.
Yeah,
and that's the same. What you'll find with Aboriginal people is that they'll say to you. You even said it to me before. You said, have you got this and that? And I said, yeah, I have. It's all in my head. If you want me to do it, I can do it for you. But I'm not going to write a freaking essay about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just not me.
Yeah.
So that's if you want to get the most out of people, then say with Aboriginal people, that's what you need to be like.
So let's talk a little bit about, I suppose, like your role as, in leadership when it comes to these the Indigenous community, because I know you've done a lot of work with land council over the years and things like that. What's been, maybe you can just talk to the listeners a little bit about things that you've done within the community of late.
In Badalla I did work there and I resigned, but I've been working with the youth. Chris is going to come on this walk.
Yeah.
And he's been doing a bit of work with us as well. And after the walk, we're going to line up some work for him.
Yeah.
Chris Kenny, the guy who's going to come in, he's a machine. He's a really, really good worker. And I'm saying that lightly because anybody who knows me, I don't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But after this walk, he's going to be perfect person that you'd want to ring me and say, what's Chris's number?
Yeah, right.
Because he'd be a perfect apprentice.
Yeah, right.
If anybody's looking to, and there's benefits as well. If you're not that that's the biggest thing anyway at the end of the day, but to employ an Aboriginal person, then there's government benefits as well. But the biggest thing with him would be is that he's just a really hard worker, and he's got a lot of skill and he's smart.
Yeah, and discipline, I would imagine.
He will be after the trip.
Right. So he's a young fella, is he?
Yeah, he's young. He's 19. Yeah.
And how old's your son, Billy?
He's 17.
Okay. So they're mates, are they?
No, me and Chris met through the land council. So me and Chris are more mates than Billy and Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, but I've worked with Chris with that, and actually Wade Monner, I worked with him. He's going to New York to do the marathon.
Yeah.
We raised money for him, and I guess at Geringer at Jervis Bay.
Yeah.
They've got their housing project, so they want me to look at that and work on that with them. So
I mean, you mentioned when we spoke, a couple of days ago, there I don't know if you're permitted to speak about this at this point, but you were saying that they were potentially, looking at you, maybe getting you to train some of their staff.
Yeah, well, I actually rang them after we spoke, and they said that's no problem. Basically, what Rebecca said, I can actually say, is that they've got a grant for like $500,000 to do a sustainable house design.
Yep.
So they're actually working on that at the moment, and then once they've designed the house, then they'll go for the second stage of the grant, and it'll be like about $4 million.
Yeah.
And that's to build Aboriginal housing. But what their plan is, they just don't want to get contractors in to come in and say, okay, well, we'll just build it, and everybody just sits around, watches and build it. The actual young guys in the community come out, and we give them an apprenticeship, and they build it.
Yeah. Okay.
And basically, because I've got my builder's license and my plumber's license, so
yeah,
I've covered a bit there, and yeah, so that's the plan. To hook up with those guys at Geringer.
So you'll basically be, I suppose, mentoring, training those people there on the trade and how to build houses.
Yeah, and from there, there's opportunity. Obviously it's good for us to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
And keep in the loop, because in the future, after that project's done, and the good ones can go and get a job somewhere, and someone in Sydney might go, I want someone that's been trained up properly.
Absolutely. No, it's an amazing story. Good on you for doing that as well. That's so awesome hearing stuff like that.
Yeah, cheers.
I'd be very interested as well to see maybe when the time comes, what the plans are from the sustainable element. I know I'm pretty passionate about sustainable building, so I'd be pretty keen to see what they come up with on that front.
Yeah, well, I'll send you Rebecca's details.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then if you need to talk to her, you can have a chat. Yeah,
cool. So, look, I suppose we're getting pretty close to. I'm pretty courteous of your time, and I appreciate the time you've spent with us this morning. So we'll probably get close to wrapping up. I suppose one thing I'd like to ask you is if people wanted to get any more information on employing Indigenous people or anything related to that, are you the best person to contact there?
Yeah, just don't email me.
Okay, yeah. just get you on Twitter, right?
You can ring me on the old way. Ring me on my phone number. It's 0439 471 763.
Maybe we'll post some notes of that.
Talk to me.
Yeah, we'll post some notes of that in the show notes. Oh, look, if anybody out there is interested, you can always email me and I can connect you guys. That's fine as well. So, look, Ben, thanks very much for your time this morning, mate. That's fantastic. That was an amazing story. We could kept on talking for hours on this, but I'm learning as we go as well. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thank you.
I'm very interested as well. I'm looking forward to this journey. When does the walk start?
When Billy finishes footy, so it's the end of September. Whenever his last game is, we've got to see how far he gets through.
Okay.
As soon as he's done, we're out of there.
No dramas. So I'm looking forward to keeping up to speed with that. So that's 3 months or 4 months? Well, you don't know.
About 8 weeks.
It'll take you 8 weeks?
No, we'll leave in 8 weeks' time.
No,
and then it'll be for 3 months. It'll take us 90 days.
Yeah, well.
90 days of living off the land and just eating fish and animals and berries. So it's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, and so with that, are you going to be crossing through people's properties, or do you have to get permits and stuff these days, or how does it work? Is it all national park?
No, I only got hassled once when I did it last time from Bedella to Sydney. Someone hassled me.
Right.
But no, just pretty relaxed and just go where we want to go. That's about it.
Yeah, right. Awesome.
Yeah.
What a cool story.
Might get arrested. It'd actually be interesting because, you're pulling up somewhere, we're doing a traditional walk and we light a fire somewhere.
Yeah.
That's what we've always done.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to be interesting. No, I'm looking forward to it. Well, look, mate, thanks very much for your time. Let's wrap it up there. But look, we'll be in touch for sure. And yeah, look, if anyone wants to get hold of you, I'll post some links in the show notes, or they can always get to you through me anyway. So, mate, thanks for your time.
Sure.
And best of luck with everything else. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.